Good evening and very welcome to the Masterclass of DUNADOCK. This is our 11th edition. DUNADOCK has been around for 8 years now, and we have been organizing programs for the industry, for film professionals, film students, and the widest of audiences as well. This year's DUNADOCK is supported by HBO Europe. HBO has been on board from the beginning of our sessions. And this year is special because it is supported in collaboration with the Fast Forward program of the Hungarian Film Fund. Welcome. I would like to welcome Steen Müller on this very special masterclass. Tue, would you like to say a couple of words of welcoming, and then I would tell a little bit more about your background and how you landed in the Hungarian Masterclass series.
Thank you for inviting me to this online session. I'm happy to be here. Well, not in Budapest. I've been in Budapest before, and I know the people who are organizing DUNADOCK very well, and I appreciate their effort and their talents as filmmakers as well. I'm sitting here in my small office in Copenhagen. I'm Danish. As you can see behind me, I'm an educated librarian, but I don't read books any longer. I was educated as a librarian, but since 75, I have been working with film, and especially documentary films. And you will see me talking like this, but sometimes I will do like that. Of course, to look more intellectual, but also because I have some notes up here for the clips. So this is the way it will go. I will introduce what we're going to show clips a little bit later. I've called this session for a poetic documentary, and let me already say now that I've done that for several reasons. One is that I think we have enough problems in the world. So I think that films about problems and conflicts and whatever, let's keep that away for a moment and remind us that documentaries can also be full of poetry. And I hope that will be an inspiration for those who are watching. If anyone is watching, I don't know, but I hope so. And I will say hello to you. And yeah. And as they say on television, over to you, Clara.
I would like to give a little bit of background information because Tue is one of the most renowned and very, very loved film consultants and film critics in Europe. He has been giving masterclasses in more than 40 countries, a lot of very, very important film festivals, documentary film festivals. Before that, you have been involved with the Danish Film Board, as far as I know, more than 20 years. And you have something also very important. You have been among the founders of the European Documentary Network, which was a very, very important institution, even for the Hungarian film professionals for a very long time. So you've been there from 1996, if I remember correctly. And from 2006, you have been a freelance consultant and film critic. And as a film critic, you almost every day publish your thoughts about current documentary films. You see in festivals, you see lately online, in online editions of festivals, which is called the Film Commentaren. Is it DK or com? Film Commentaren com?
DK.
DK, okay. So this is also a very, very important source for all kind of filmmakers, film professionals, film students, because we get a glimpse into the films we often are not able to see for ourselves. I would like to name a few festivals you are in connection with, because this is very important. You have been in a consultant and festival selectors for Docs Barcelona, which is a very important festival for documentary filmmakers. You have been founder of the Baltic Sea Forum, which we will get back to because it's related to the current masterclass, I imagine. And you have been teaching at the Zelig Documentary Film School in Italy, in Bolzano, and you are very much involved in the Georgian film scene in DUNADOCK also, but all around Europe. Is there anything which is also dear to your heart? Any other festivals, film schools?
There is one festival very dear to my heart, which is taking place next week in Belgrade. And it's called Magnificent Seven. It's a special festival with 7 films over 7 days. And I was supposed to go, but some clever people told me that it's not a good idea to go due to the pandemic. So I can tell you that I normally travel 2 to 3 months, which I really love a lot. Not only for films, but also, you know, for having a good life in Paris, for instance, or yeah, and also to New York, where my wife's brother is living. But this is not happening right now, of course. And I know that you are sitting in Vienna, you are not in Budapest. I mean, we are all more or less isolated. So all these Zoom things, even if you can get very tired of sitting, looking into a computer all the time, they are good. They are bringing us together, and it's not the same as sitting with a cup of coffee or a glass of wine, etc. But this is what we can do, and I think that the documentary community all over are doing very good things in this connection.
Yeah, and we try to see it as a little bit of positive thing also, that we are able to gather more people to have more international master classes in our DUNADOCK edition, because we also have a tutor from Israel, Noam Mishuri. We have you from Denmark. So we try to open up and take advantage of the free time of people not being able to travel at this stage and be present in festivals. But I think at the end, maybe of the masterclass, we can talk about this also, because the whole film community is affected by the lack of real festivals, real presence of the audience and this kind of thing. So maybe if we have time, we can talk about it. I would like to just encourage our audience to ask questions in the stream. You can put your questions anonymously or with your name, and we will try to find some time at the end of the masterclass to ask these questions and to find answers from Tue. I would also like to say that in parallel with the masterclass, you are running consultancy for DUNADOCK projects. We have been selecting 5 projects from all over the world, we can say, this year, whom you are coaching and preparing for their final pitch on Saturday. So I hope the people of the DUNADOCK masterclass and the project development forum are also present, and they are also welcome to ask their questions. So I would like to give the floor to you, your wonderful presentation about documentary poetry and the Baltic film poets.
Thank you very much. So what I've done is that I have picked 5 clips, and these 5 clips will come with me talking in between and saying something why I've picked these clips. And the focus is, of course, the poetic documentary, whatever that means. I'm not going to try to define it, but let me just say that I think what you can say is it's not, we are not going into the field of subject-orientated documentaries as such, but more, well, every documentary has a subject, but more into films about human beings. And that's what I have been addicted to, I would say, since I started being involved in documentary in 75, where I was hired by the Danish Film Board, and where I spent 20 years, as Clara said, in all capacities, you know, going around showing films, meeting the audience, organizing festivals in Denmark, sending film people to festivals in other countries, visiting festivals myself, and also for quite some years being the one who is giving money for films as a film consultant. In television, you call it a commissioning editor. It's more or less the same. So I've been quite close to filmmaking, even if I have never made a film myself. So I'm one of, so if some of you, I used to say, if some of you don't want to listen to a person who hasn't made a film, you can leave now. But I think that I have been educated very much, especially in at the editing table, and also at watching rough cuts, which I still do. And I have a lot of pleasure in doing so. I'm also always saying to people that I'm not an editor. I cannot give you any advice of why this little thing doesn't work for me, or if you should move it from the start till the beginning and so on, because I don't know the consequences. But I can say what works and what doesn't work, and in many cases I can also say this is true documentary poetry. So in my pretty long life in documentaries, I've met some people who I appreciate a lot, and I started to love films from the eastern part of Europe, and it was very much due to the fact that in 1990, when everything changed in Europe, when the Berlin Wall fell and USSR stopped, etc., we in Denmark were happy to get some funding so we could make a film festival on the island of Bornholm, which is in the middle of the Baltic Sea. And we did that and invited filmmakers from around the Baltic Sea to come to Bornholm. And that was a fantastic experience and an eye-opener for me. Not only did I get to know the films produced, made in the Baltic countries, but also got closer to films made in Russia, in Poland, in Finland, which I knew more or less in beforehand, and also in Germany and my own country. So that was something that we did in 10 years, and I created by this a fantastic network and contacts to film people who I have been following their career and being in contact with. And one of them is the Russian film director called Sergei Dvortsevoy. And just very briefly about him, he came into film pretty late. He was actually, he's a Russian, but born in Kazakhstan, which was one of the 15 republics. And he was working for Aeroflot as an engineer, radio engineer for many years. And then he decided to change profession, and he went to a film school in Moscow, not the big one, the GIG, but another film school, and learned the métier. And his graduation film is 17 minutes long, and is called Paradise in the English title. And I would like to show the first 4 minutes of this film to you, and then we can continue the talk. So please, first clip. Okay, so a boy falling, a boy eating his porridge, falling asleep. In this film called Paradise, which is 17 minutes long and which was made in 1995 by Sergei Dvortsevoy. It takes place in the desert in Kazakhstan. And what I want to tell you is I would like to point at the words for documentary makers, which are very important, namely preparation. I mean, Sergei Dvortsevoy, he went to this place, to the family, to the nomad family, and he stayed there for half a year, something like that. He was taking part in the daily work of the family, and he was eating with them, and he was observing them. And he was also, thinking, of course, he was thinking about how to make this film. And he saw this boy doing the same thing again and again. I mean, like a kind of ritual, sitting there, eating, having a good time, and then falling asleep. And he thought, okay, I have to have this in the film. So, and there were other episodes he also watched, observed, and at the end of this preparation, he invited a cameraman to come. This was the time of filming on film material, 35 millimeter material, and a film cinematographer came, who was used to, let's say, the Soviet style. And Sergei Dvortsevoy, he said to him, you just observe this, observe this in one take. And the cameraman said, are you sure? I mean, normally we make takes from different angles to put the scene together. And Sergei Dvortseva, he said, no, I wanted to, let's try my version first, and then you can do your version. And of course, when the film was being edited, he chose his own versions. And this is, let's say, his speciality, that he's taking long takes and keep them. This was his first film, a graduation film. And after that, he made a film called Bread Day, which was shot in the north of St. Petersburg, Leningrad at the time. And also there he was taking long shots. And this in this film there is a start which is uncut 10 minutes. And he actually got interest from the British television station Channel 4, who at that time was very interested in documentaries. They are not that any longer. And he had to go into a fight together with his distributor on these 10 minutes because he wanted to have these 10 minutes. And they said, it doesn't work on television. Please, I mean, can we cut it down? No. And at the end, they accepted it. And of course, they probably lost some viewers on television who thought that, what is this going on? But he built his reputation on this. It was also shot on 35 millimeter. And it was a no-funded film, this called Bread Day. It was made by from the negative material that he achieved as awards from this film that you just saw a little bite of. And then he kept on making a couple of other films. He made altogether 4 documentary films. And I'm talking in past time because then he started to make fiction films, but fiction films with quite some documentary elements. He made one called Tulpan, and he made one called, that's a new one, the newest one, called Aika. And both of them have been awarded in Cannes Film Festival, etc. But he still has this mark of documentary. But the reason why I think is very interesting. Now I talked about preparation as something very important. And if you are listening out there, you might have encountered the same dilemmas as he did, namely the ethical question. Because what happened was that when he was filming, after he had filmed this Paradise, and it was awarded, and film critics loved it, etc., etc., the family that he filmed was attacked, harassed, I would say, by people in the community there who said to them, why can you allow, and to Sergei Dvortseva, to the director, how can you make a film, how can you as participants in a film allow such a bad picture of us? That we are eating on the floor, it's not, and there's later in the film, there's a woman who takes the water from what's left from making the porridge, and she's washing her hair in that water. How can you allow a picture like this, sending that out in the world, that we could, so people get a wrong impression of us? And the same happened with another film, the last documentary film he made, which was called a blind man. I think it's another title. I just forgot the real title. The Blind Man, and it was a film that he made over 4 years, where he was filming a man in an apartment, a blind man who was, knitting knitting the whole day, and he was alone in that flat, and he had a cat, and he was observing that, and he was, he made a beautiful, beautiful, from my point of view, beautiful film. But again, people said, "Come on, how can you make a film about a blind man like that?" So he started feeling very having a bad conscience, so to say, in this ethical question, and that was one of the reasons why he turned to fiction films, because he said in an interview that I felt at the end, I felt like a vampire. I was just, I was going in, I was sucking blood out of people, ordinary people, and who am I to do that? Can I do that? I'm sure that you also, Clara, has been in this in this dilemma. Where do I stop? Do I have the permission? Can I do that? Just for the artistic value, etc., etc. Where does art stop? And this is why he went for documentaries, but for fiction films. But as I said, it's very much documentary-like. I mean, the last one called Aika, the woman who is playing the main role and who is actually, he was awarded. She's an actress, but she was putting a lot of herself into the role. So this is a dilemma, I think, that many filmmakers face. How close can you go? Another thing, I have three words on my paper up here: and preparation, ethical problems, the vampire question, so to say, and then the last one is, of course, patience, waiting for the right moment, for the poetic moments to happen. And then, of course, which I find crucial for every documentary maker, you have to have this. What is the DNA of a documentary director? I don't know. I would say you have to be curious. You have to be interested in other people. I mean, it sounds very banal, but it is like that. That's what I like about documentaries, first of all, and then try to find these beautiful moments of life. He always said, Sergei Dvorsky once, I love life, and this is what I want to make films about. Life meaning also other human beings. And he's himself living in a small apartment. Even he's famous now, has a name. He's living in a small apartment in Moscow. He has a wife, he has kids, a couple of kids. And he's like me, I mean, ordinary football fan. So when we met 1 year ago in Moscow when I was there for the festival, and we started talking about film, and then what about some football talk? And then we talked football. He wanted to be just a little anecdote. He wanted to be a football player himself from childhood, and he was quite good. But he was very, as a young person, he was injured, and he had to stop. And then he became a coach for the Kazakh youth team for some years, and he's still following football. There is a very good, just if you are interested, there's a very good interview with him that you can Google on Guardian, the English newspaper, made by the famous Polish director called Paweł Pawlikowski, who made Ida and who's made films in Russia. So he was teaching one day at the school where Sergei was a student, and he met him, and they were talking, and he kept in touch with him, and he adores his film very much, and this interview is quite interesting. So you just Google Dvorcevo Pawlikowski, and then you can find this interview if you are interested. I just want to see if I've forgotten something. No. No. Okay. So he's born in 1962. So you can figure out how old he is. And his first film was in 1995. Then we are moving from Russia to one of the former Soviet republics, Lithuania. And again, coming back to this festival that I talked about in Bornholm, I was very happy to meet filmmakers from all the Baltic countries, and especially from the one to the south, namely Lithuania, where they are making wonderful poetic films, I would say. One of those who I got very close to, and still is very close to, is the director called Audrius Stonys. And I would like to show a film also from 1995, a little clip from a film called Anti-Gravitation. So let's have a look at that.
Lexio epistoli beati Pauli apostoli ad Romanos. Fratres, scientes quia ora estiam de somno surge. Nun genime propior est nostra salus, quam cum credidimus. Nox precessit dies autem apropina quam. Amisciamus ergo opera tenebram, et in duamur arma lucis. Verbum Domini.
So a film which was made on film material again, black and white, and everything in that film is vertical. As you can see, that was a decision of the film. in again in a workshop both in Barcelona but also in Riga this year. I was talking to Audrius Stonys about his works, and he was explaining to me that he had one of the fantastic cameramen connected to this film, who has been working on many Russian films, also Soviet films. His name is Jonas Gricius, and you know, as a director, you have to explain to the cameraman what you want. And Audrius was a young person at that time. He was not even 30 years old, and he was talking and explaining, and you know, probably in a very intellectual way. And the cameraman said, "Stop! Don't tell me anything. I think I know what you just, you know, tell me what you want." And then he was, you know, filming this woman and climbing up, etc. And of course, I mean, you have to be careful not to interpret too much, but of course, you have to think about that this is 95. This is not so long after Lithuania was a Soviet republic, and in the USSR, religion was not really something that was favored by the government. So many churches were made into for other purposes. So this is also, of course, something which has influenced his decision to make a film like that. But I think it's also stylistically interesting that he's working with this vertical line. I mean, trying to you know, find out what it is at the same time that he is in this film, and he still has that in the films that he's making today. Is very interested in people, not to get close to people like Dvortsevoy, but you know, to study the faces, the movements of people, and try to create an atmosphere. And this is done also with his use of music. And in this and in other film, I mean, he's in a way, he's very classical. And let me already now say that when I started there in Bornholm in this festival, I thought that Estonian, Latvian, and Lithuanian documentaries were more or less the same. No, they are completely different. I mean, the Lithuanians are closer to the south, to Poland, and you can feel that there's much more spirituality, I would call it, in this film. So now we jump to the next clip, and let me just say that this is from 2006. So this almost 11 years later, and he made several other films. But I would like to jump to this because this is his first color film, and it is his last film made on film material. So he at that time had found a new cameraman, also Audrius Stonys, and it was the first collaboration between the two, a collaboration which lasted for 13 years, where tragically the cameraman passed away. But they were really Audrius, and they worked together. And the third person who also participated in this creation was an editor called Danielus, And Danielus is also the editor of the films of another Sergei Lutznitsa. You might have heard about him, who is working very much with this Danielus. So this film is, and I will talk more about that, is called Uku Ukai. Let's have a clip from Uku Ukai. Okay. And now I see only a little picture of you, Clara. Can I get you bigger? Okay, it's all right. What the hell is this? I mean, this is a little excerpt from a film, which is in many ways a little mysterious, I would say. I mean, it was Audrius Stonys' own decision to have this clip, and it's a film about beauty, but it's also a film about beauty in old age. It's again a film about keeping some kind of balance between soul and body in a way. And he put it together like this. It's half an hour film, and he also includes younger people He includes somebody, a man who is jogging, running. So it can be seen as something, a message film, like keep fit. But it's not. It's much more. It's much more, and it's really a film which is open for any kind of interpretation. Let me just do a little commercial for this excellent VOD called DAR-Film, Dog Alliance VOD, where you for very little money can watch a film like this. The whole film is there, and there are many other films by Audrius Stonys on Dog Alliance that you could enjoy. I'm sure you would enjoy it. So he's now going for longer films, half an hour, and he's also now saying goodbye to 35. And in an interview that I made with him, a conversation of 90 minutes that you can find on filmkommentaren.dk, conversation between me and Audrius Stonys. He says that he's still missing something. He's still missing the 35 image, but this is nostalgia, and he's now working, of course, with video, with digital cameras, etc. But he keeps his own handwriting. I think you can already now see these two clips that he has a personal style in a way, you can say. The funny thing, as we are now in a workshop where people on Saturday are going to pitch, is that Audrius Stonys with this project was pitching it's the biggest festival, which is in Amsterdam, of course, at IDFA, and he did that this year. And I think I'm allowed to say that when he came there, he was asking me. I was there as well. He said, I don't really know how to pitch it, because I'm afraid I'm going to lie a little in order to sell the film. I said, well, what do you mean by lying? I mean, I still don't know exactly what this film will be. So whatever I say is maybe a little fiction. And I'm still remembering that because at a pitching session in Riga this year, a filmmaker who's also making poetic documentaries was asked about what will happen in the film. It was a film that he was going to make over some years, and one of the commissioning editors, one of the television people, said, "What will happen?" And he said, "I don't know." And the commissioning editors were like that. And yeah, I think the right to say "I don't know" must be among filmmakers. Filmmakers should be allowed to say, "I don't know," because in many cases, especially with broadcasters, with television people, they want to know what happens and what is the ending of the film. And there was another. Now I'm taking a little side step, but I think it's important. Another project which was about a couple who were going to be married, and they were married, and there were some, conflicts, etc. And then another broadcaster said to the filmmaker, who was the son of the woman to be married, and said, "Will they stay together?" And I was the moderator and said, "Come on, I mean, how can you ask a question like that? It's film. It's happening. I mean, what is I'm afraid they were insulting the broadcaster, saying, "What a stupid question." I mean, please let things develop. I mean, documentary, you don't know what happens in many cases, and in this case with Audrius Stonys, he didn't know what the end result would be, and the film is still a little mysterious. But he pitched it, and the Arte commissioning editor from France, he loved it, and he didn't ask these kind of questions, and he had a very good collaboration with him. I don't know that if that would be able to happen now, because it's still 15 years ago, but it was possible at that time. So that was Audrius Stonys building up his reputation as a filmmaker who are making films which are very personal. And that was one of the reasons why he got into this film called Bridges of Time, which I hope some of you have seen. If you haven't seen it, you can see it later. Bridges of Time, which is, I think, also on this Doc Alliance. And the idea was, and it came from a Latvian filmmaker, wonderful filmmaker called Kristine Briede, who had studied Baltic cinema. And she wanted to make a film about the Baltic poetic cinema. And she wanted to have some of the old heroes, dead or alive, to be in this film, with clips from their films, with interviews with them, and not interviews, but conversations. And I was so happy that they invited me to come on some research trips to those who were still alive. And one of these people was the one that you're going to meet now in the two last clips, namely a man called Audrius Stonys. It was, let me just say, it was a Baltic co-production. All three countries, production companies from all three countries got together to make this film, with support from the film funds and from the also from broadcasters. And out came, I think, a beautiful film, which is an homage to filmmaking and to making poetic documentaries. And as I said, I was happy to be involved because one of the main persons in the film and in Latvian documentary, in the Latvian documentary scene, is the man called Audrius Stonys. And what you're going to see in both clips is some black and white excerpts from a film that he was the main director of. This film is called 235 Million. It was made in 1967. It was commissioned by, if you can put it like that, by the Soviet government to celebrate the 50 years of the Russian Revolution. And it was steered by, organized by Latvian filmmakers. Riga was the capital of documentary cinema in Soviet Union. And Audrius Stonys and his colleague, a name that you, of course, will know if you are in film history, namely Hertz Frank. These two people were the ones who were organizing it. And it was, you know, a big thing because they wanted to film in all 15 republics. And they did. And the film was, I mean, there's a fantastic story about how they gave manuals to all the cinematographers who were sent out, like correspondence, manuals of what they should find, but still with a kind of freedom. And the film came out in 1967. It was shot during 1966. And it is a pure masterpiece, simply. But the Soviet people, Brezhnev and company, did not like the film because it was not a hymn to the Soviet Union as such. I mean, there were some shots from military power, etc. There were some shots from the Duma, and you also see Brezhnev and Gromyko, but they are not put on a pedestal. They are not heroized, not at all. What they were interested in was ordinary people's life in the different republics, and it was, you know, human. It became a humanistic film, so to say. And I would like to quote from one of the things in the proposal or in the manuals what they were saying. So they were saying that they should seek out the most beautiful, venerable, heartwarming, and intense states of the human soul. This was what the filmmakers were sent out to find. And then they were, you know, putting it together with music, and maybe that also influenced the decision of the Soviet film Central Committee, or whatever you would call it, that there were a lot of music from the West. And so the director, Audrius Stonys, he was called to Moscow. He was asked to cut out some scenes from the film, and he did that, and out came a version which was around 70 minutes, and there was a longer version. But the original version, the director's cut, as we call it today, was not there and has not been there for a long time, until this Kristine Briede and the director, or one of the producers called Audrius Stonys from Riga, they found some material under the bed of one of his children, and I don't know if the story is right, but now they are restoring a director's cut, digitizing it. So it's my hope that this film will come out to festivals, feature film festivals, documentary film festival, to be shown as the pearl it was. Back to myself, so to say, I had never met this Audrius Stonys, even if I had been many times in Riga. He was not so visible in the. He was living in the countryside, and was not, you know, going into the film circuits any longer, an old man. But I came there, and he was the most wonderful, beautiful, warm-hearted, to use the word again, warm-hearted person I've never met. And he was totally away from every kind of propaganda filmmaking that many other people were saying. So the two big names in which are in Bridges of Time, big names in Latvian documentary, Audrius Stonys and Frank, they went together like, you know, like this, where Audrius Stonys is the poet, the one who can, you know, deal with so-called ordinary people and with scenes of love and death and whatever, where Frank is the intellectual, who has been, you know, talking a lot about films, and who has made some beautiful films himself. Just mention one that you probably know, namely, again, a film about a child, namely the film called 10 Minutes Older, which is a film that he made together with the cameraman called Juris Podnieks. So now we will meet Audrius Stonys in his place in the countryside, First that, and then we can talk a little again. So you could see the clip from 235 million, the farewell scene, which is, you know, beautiful, beautiful. And there was music on that, yes? Yeah. And that's another thing, that the music was composed for the film. And lately, the composer of the film, he's still alive. He was asked to remember it, because it's a very beautiful music which is going through the film. And he said, his name is Pauls, the last name is Pauls. He said, I don't remember it, because at that time I was drunk most of the time. But then he sat, they put him at the piano, and he played the tune, and it's so beautiful, and he remembers everything, actually. And what is to be said also is that Audrius Brown is, as I said, one of them, and Herz Frank is another person from this generation. And the three people who are still alive are the cameraman called Seleckis, from Latvia. It's Mark Sosas from Estonia. And it's Audrius Stonys from Estonia as well. So three different persons, but they're still alive. And it was a big pleasure when the film was launched that the filmmakers and the producers took the three of them to the premiere, and they were talking and with the audience, and it was, you know, remembering what happened in these years, actually. Let's go to the last one, which is also Audrius Brown's, and yeah, let's just show the clip, please.
Es esmu nomiris pat, vispār beigts, bet atkal atmodies. Man bija tāds gadījums, kad es redzēju tādu skaistu sapni, kad tādā milzīgā angārā ir nolikts tāds kaut kāds tāds šķērslis maizes klaipa formā, ja? Akmens, bet tas ir tāds drusku lielāks nekā viss šī istabiņa, ja? Tā, un pilnīgi nopolēts, tīrs. Un man par to ir jātiek kā alpinistam uz tā klaipit kā virspusē. Un tur ir tikai tāda maza tāda iedobīta, kur it kā varētu kaut kā kāju uzlikt un ar kedām uzrāpties. Un es rāpjos, un man ir meitene, pas niet rood zijn. En politie er ook dus ook zo. Skaiste meisje, die man die ik zo snel gezien heb, hij is mis rood. The skies to be skies dat skies we zien. No werd skies om zijn koers no werd eens.
Good. So, I mean, the last one is, I think, I hope you got it because I couldn't see it myself now, but it's about a dream he has, a dream about his own death, so to say. But it's very beautiful, and you can see that he's very moved. And there is this, I would say, iconic clip from the 235, wasn't there, where you look at the woman close up here and she opens the eyes. Is that right? Yeah. And this is for me, you know, a clip that you know, will stay in my mind, and I think also in the viewer's mind, because it's so beautiful. And the characteristics of the poetic cinema, I mean, it's they trusted the image. They were not so interested in words. This is also the characteristic of Audrius Stonys today. He often says there are too many words. I mean, and he's absolutely right. And it's again, if I should be the school teacher, trust the image. I mean, really, composition, compose your images, trust it. Try to build your story through images, and don't try to have everything explained. And that's what they did in this 235 film. And that's also what they try to do in Bridges of Time, where you see some of the images coming up without any words. I mean, one of the Latvian directors, if you have seen the film, an old man, Freimanis is his name. He's sitting in his house, cottage in the forest, and he's coming and he's going, he's walking towards the camera, and he just stands there, and the camera is observing him, and he's just looking into the camera. And then he says, and then comes the music, he says, like, okay, this is the end of the film. But they don't put in the music. I mean, he's turning around and then he's walking back. An old man with a stick, beautiful. So in a way, I remember we showed the film in Barcelona Film Festival. And one of my colleagues says, well, you can say it's about filmmaking. And of course it is about filmmaking and filmmakers in a special time. And in a special in countries which were at that time suppressed by Soviet Union, but it's also a film about people. They could be everything. I mean, it could be. I mean, they are filmmakers, but they are also, human beings who are alive and doing things, and some of them remember, and some do not remember. And this is, there's something very appealing for me in this approach to filmmaking. Now I'm focusing on this, and of course, let me just say that of course there are many other film styles in the Baltic countries than the one that I've shown to you, and which are in Bridges of Time. But there is something specific, a wave, I would say, like there was a wave in France in the new wave, La Nouvelle Vague. Also, there was a wave in the Baltic countries.
Thank you very much, Tue. Sorry, go ahead.
Can't you get closer to me, like in the beginning?
Yes, like this. Yeah.
No.
Next to I think it's up to your setting, your Zoom setting. But we have like 15 minutes, and we have a very, very good question, which I would like to pass to you. So the comment goes like, thank you very much for the beautiful examples and clips you have shown. So where can these type of films find financing today? And I would add as another question, where can they find their audience? Could you talk a little bit about this?
I mean, in this case, of course, the audience is first of all in festivals, but there are many festivals. And this film has been around, of course, in the Baltic countries, but also in Russia. It was shown in Shanghai, and it won the first prize in Shanghai. So it can be appreciated all over. And the film was also Lithuanian contribution to the Oscars. So it was, appreciated by Lithuania, and it went to the Oscars in the long list. Of course, it didn't go to the final, but it was there, and they were showing the film over there. So it has been around. I think you can forget about television, mostly television in other countries than the Baltic countries, and of course in Russia there's this current time television, and I think that they have shown the film. It is, of course, outside the Baltic countries, maybe for a special audience. For also, you have to be a film lover to see that. In terms of funding, I would just say that one of the good things in the Baltic countries, there are many good things in terms of film funding, is that they established film funds. I mean, just after they got their independence in 1991, there were no film funds. Everybody, I mean, many of the people, like Audrius Stonys, Hertz Frank, etc., they were employed by the state in the state studios. So when the state studios stopped to function, they had to, privatize, make private companies, and they did. And I've been following with big pleasure that producers like the one I mentioned, Audrius Stonys, and producers also in Lithuania and in Estonia, have really gone international. So they are doing the same as you are doing, going around trying to find funding for their films. And so in terms of funding, that's a general thing. I don't know how it is in Hungary, but I suppose that broadcast funding is very, if it exists, is very, very little. So it's absolutely film funds which are supporting documentaries as an art form.
Yes. I would like to open up a little bit the concept of poetic documentary or poetry in documentary. We've been talking all evening about the Baltic films. Do you have an overview of other like centers of poetic documentary geographically? You certainly have an overview of festivals and special audiences for this kind of documentary. I mean, for example, the Neon Festival Vision du Réel is a lot welcoming this type of documentary. So can you just talk a little bit about other films that might be interesting for our audiences?
Yeah, let me talk about maybe other film directors also. I was very happy lately to see here in Copenhagen in the Cinematheque a film by the Portuguese director called Pedro Costa. And I would absolutely advise those of you who are interested in this kind of film to try to find films by Pedro Costa. I mean, he's a master, and he's a true poet in filmmaking. He's making films in a different way. I mean, it's on the mix of documentary and fiction. And what else? I think many things you mentioned. Georgia. Many things are happening in Georgia. There are many talented filmmakers coming up there. I think it's also to do with good support from the Georgian Film Fund. Salome Yachi has made some wonderful films, which I would characterize as well as poetic documentaries. But there are also younger people than Salome who's coming up with films which are interesting. And of course, if you go to Russia, Viktor Kosakowski, of course. I'm a big fan of Viktor Kosakowski, and I'm so unhappy that I cannot see his new film, which is called Gunda, which is not released. He doesn't want it, or the distribution company doesn't want it online, so it has to be shown on a big screen. And I was watching it at IDFA. Was it last year? On a big screen, and it's no, not this one, but the one before, Aquarela. I mean, he is absolutely a film poet. Many people think that he's overdoing his poetry, but I mean, if you think back in film history, also his first film, I'm sure that you have shown it to students, called The Belovs.
Yes.
Belovi, yeah, is of course a beautiful film. I mean, I think in all countries there are individuals who are making. I mean, you have to pick them out. I think also in Poland, the father and son, Marcel Wuszyński and Paweł Wuszyński, are making beautiful poetic films. But you know, it's a wide range of filmmaking, and there can also be some. Are there any in England? I'm not sure. Maybe. I mean, it has to do with tradition also, and it's obvious that there are many very interesting films that you can call poetic in the eastern part of Europe, and it has to do, I think, also with the fact that you don't have strong public broadcasters. Whereas if you look at England, and the BBC and the Channel 4, especially BBC now, have been directing what kind of films should be made. And so, you know, there are many films which have, you know, played according to the TV standards, the TV formats, as you know from many, Clara, from many TV pitching sessions.
So I will just check once more the questions, and then I think we could maybe wrap up a little bit. I also remembered Belovi, Kosakovsky's film, because of the ethical considerations and because of the other keyword you had about preparation. I remember that he was preparing Belovi for a long time, and not only his relationship, but the equipment he was shooting that film with.
Can I just say one thing about Kosakovsky, which I like, also because I see so many films. He surprises us. I mean, if you remember Belovi, the music in the beginning of Belovi is some kind of Japanese music or something. I don't know what it is. And you just, what the hell is this? I mean, and it's also an advice I would say to try to you know, surprise us. And you know, and that's and then, as you know very well, and because you're doing a film like that now, surprise us, be personal, you know, and do something crazy in the editing. I don't know, you know, things like that, because there are too many. There's too much mainstream. Yeah.
Yes, and that could be another discussion about how pitching forums are shaping stories and shaping projects. We have talked a little bit about pitching before, and also about poetic documentaries and pitching forums. And you have started your presentation 2 days ago at DUNADOCK, saying that there is a very important switch. First, 20 years ago, filmmakers pitched stories, important stories, global stories, and now they rather pitch their own way of telling those stories. Sure. So I think this connects to what you have just said, basically about poetic documentary, the way of telling a story, the way of narration. There is just one last question here. It's about Honeyland, the Oscar-nominated Honeyland. Would you call that a poetic documentary?
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. It was, you know, I have a story about that also, because I was very close to the producer and the editor, and who's Atanas Georgiev from Macedonia, and at a certain point I followed the from the side. I followed the film, and at a certain point he had a almost fine cut. And he sent it to me, and he said, "Tue, I think I have a masterpiece here." And I said, "Okay, come on, man. I mean, take it easy." And then I watched it, and it was a masterpiece. And then, you know, the whole story about this film going to Sundance and winning there, going to be Oscar nominated in 2 categories. I mean, it's fantastic. And again, you are asking, is there an audience? There is an audience, and for this film, it had a big success in United States of America. So United States of America is not only Trump and dumb, you know, stupid things and so on. There's an audience who likes to see life as it can be in other places of the world.
I think we will have to close our discussion on this encouraging note, even if we are sitting in different quarantines in different parts of the world. This should encourage us that there is an audience out there, and as soon as this is over, our films will get to that audience in person, in big screen, like Kosakovsky wishes, and even poetic documentaries, even situative documentaries, all kinds of documentaries will find a place and find their audience.
On the big screen, please.
On the big screen, please. Thank you very much.
Think about the cameraman and the sound persons. Everybody has done their best to have it on the big screen, and then it comes on the computer. It's not, but we can't do anything about that right now. But the vaccine will come. The vaccine will come.
Yeah, so hope to see you at next DUNADOCK and next Versio Festival also in person, and continue with our discussion about poetic documentaries. Thank you very much for being with us tonight.
Thanks a lot. Ciao.
Thank you, Toe. Thank you.